I planned an extravagant week-long getaway to Europe for my parents, but they chose to take my unemployed sister along instead. "You're late," my mother remarked as she emerged onto the porch, dragging her suitcase along. I cast a fleeting look at the time displayed on my dashboard. The clock struck 6:02 in the early morning light. "2 minutes late, Mom," I said, managing a strained smile. I stepped out of the car to assist with the luggage, only to catch sight of my sister Isabel, appearing from the house, dragging her suitcase behind her. My smile became still. "What is happening?" I inquired, striving to maintain my composure. My mom turned to me, her demeanor unnaturally bright for the gravity of the moment. "Oh, Serena, we've chosen to have Isabel join us instead of you. She has been under immense pressure recently, and this journey is essential for her well-being." A weight pressed upon my chest. "Rather than me? Mom, I've been preparing for this moment for so long. I covered all the expenses myself." She flicked her hand away, as though I had merely highlighted a minor detail. "We appreciate you, darling, but it seems you're constantly putting in so much effort. Another journey awaits you in the future. Isabel is in urgent need of this at this moment." Isabel showed no sign of remorse whatsoever. She merely smiled, leaning slightly to one side. "Thanks for understanding, sis," she said, her tone laced with insincerity. I gazed at the pair, my heart racing within me. My dad emerged shortly after, his gaze averted as he passed me his suitcase. "This is beyond comprehension," I uttered, my voice trembling. "This was meant to be our journey. I have something to reveal to you." "Indeed it remains so," my mother remarked with a gentle smile. "Only with Isabel instead. Please, Serena, let's keep this low-key. Your sister is in dire need of some respite. I am Serena, and for the last 2 years, I have dedicated myself to working extra hours, meticulously saving every cent to provide my parents with an unforgettable journey. Air travel, opulent accommodations, curated experiences. I meticulously arranged every aspect, right down to the final dinner reservation." As I lingered in my parents' driveway, observing my sister slide into the backseat of my car, a truth I had long evaded began to surface. No matter the amount of effort I invested, it was all in vain. In their gaze, Isabel would forever hold the top position. I tightened my jaw, suppressing the biting response that lingered just out of reach. Instead, I managed a strained grin and lifted the lid of the trunk. "Let's proceed," I stated, my tone devoid of emotion. If they chose to place her above me, so be it. They might accompany her. Yet, I refused to allow them to revel in it. The journey to the airport was filled with an oppressive stillness, broken only by Isabel's relentless conversation. "Oh my goodness, Mom, did you catch that TikTok about Paris? I eagerly anticipate the experience of shopping there. Is there a chance we can fit that in? Will the tours consume the entire day?" My hands clenched around the steering wheel, my gaze fixed ahead, battling the urge to speak. My mom laughed quietly. "Certainly there will be ample time. We'll unravel the mystery when we arrive." I clenched my jaw tightly, feeling the sharp sting of my teeth against tender flesh. Upon our arrival, they appeared completely oblivious to my absence from that collective existence. At a certain moment, my father made a sound in his throat. "We appreciate your willingness to take us, Serena. I understand this likely seems unexpected." I caught a glimpse of him in the reflection of the rearview mirror. "Unexpected? That's a thought-provoking perspective, Dad." He remained unresponsive. He shifted in his seat, a palpable tension hanging in the air, as if he regretted every word that had escaped his lips. Isabel leaned forward from the back seat, her voice a harsh whisper. "You're not upset, are you? This is truly generous of you to allow me to leave. This was beyond my means to achieve alone." I gritted my teeth and managed a strained grin. "Certainly, Isabel. Embrace the journey." As we arrived at the airport drop-off zone, my composure was on the brink of unraveling. While I assisted in unloading their luggage, my mom embraced me warmly. "I appreciate your understanding, my dear. This holds significant weight for us and for Isabel as well." I responded with a rigid nod. "Of course, Mother." Isabel moved forward with a quiet determination, her suitcase gliding behind her as she approached the entrance. "Thank you, Serena. Your excellence is unmatched." I stood there, my heart heavy as I watched them fade into the terminal, a mix of anger and pain constricting within me. The journey home felt like a haze. I revisited the dialogue in my mind repeatedly, every phrase slicing through me more profoundly than the one before. This holds significant weight for Isabel. You're not upset, are you? Your relentless effort is truly commendable. I pulled into my driveway and lingered in the car for a while, my hands clenched tightly around the steering wheel, turning my knuckles pale. With unwavering determination, I stepped into the house, retrieved my laptop, and accessed every travel account I had utilized for the trip. Are there any bookings for accommodations? Terminated. Excursions? Returned. Elevated travel experiences? Negative. I gazed at the confirmation emails accumulating in my inbox, sensing the pressure in my chest begin to lift. They chose her over me? All right, but they won't be indulging in luxury accommodations or exclusive excursions at my expense. As I shut my laptop, a wave of contentment washed over me. They might find a way to articulate their situation to the reception team in Paris. I was finished allowing them to walk all over me. The calls began immediately upon their arrival. My phone vibrated incessantly while I emptied my suitcase, the one I had meticulously prepared for a journey that had slipped away from me. The contradiction lingered in my mind as I carefully hung my dresses and arranged my shoes back on the shelf. The hum persisted, saturating the space with its unyielding resonance. I exhaled softly, reaching for the phone and casting my eyes over the display. My mother's name appeared on the screen, alongside a series of missed calls and messages. I activated the device and perused the messages that appeared on the screen. Serena, what is happening? We are unable to check in at the hotel. The booking is absent. Reach out to me without delay. Serena, this is not amusing. Address this immediately. A sound slipped from my lips before I could contain it. Can this be repaired? Did they truly believe I would come rushing in to rescue them after everything that transpired? The phone vibrated once more, signaling a call from Isabel. I allowed it to ring, and she left a message instead. Serena, this is so trivial, she snapped, her voice laced with superiority. We find ourselves stranded in this situation due to your actions. It's imperative that you contact the hotel and resolve this immediately. I dismissed the message with a sigh and erased the voicemail without bothering to hear more. For years I had been the one to mend their errors, the silent presence that ensured everything ran smoothly and filled in the gaps left behind. Never again. Ultimately, I chose to respond, merely to put an end to the relentless stream of calls. My mom's voice crashed over me with a forceful surge of fury as soon as I answered the call. Serena, what have you done? The hotel claims the reservation has been voided, and all the tours are no longer scheduled. I allowed her to express her frustrations for a while, then responded with a quiet assurance, I have called it off. A heavy stillness enveloped the room before she whispered, Why would you do that? Oh, I can't say for sure, I replied, my voice dripping with irony. Perhaps it was your choice to bring Isabel along on my journey. You're fortunate I even took the time to drive you to the airport. We believed you would comprehend, she retorted. Comprehend what? I inquired, my tone elevating. All those years of saving and planning seemed insignificant because Isabel required a pause? That my efforts were insignificant to you? Listen, Mom, I find it confusing and honestly I'm indifferent about it. I ended the call abruptly, silencing the device and carelessly flinging it onto the couch. The stillness that ensued was serene, and I sensed a newfound freedom in my breath. If they chose to focus on Isabel, so be it. Yet, they were capable of navigating the remainder of the journey on their own. The stillness endured for merely a single day. By the next morning, my phone was alive with a flurry of calls and messages. Initially, I chose to overlook their presence. The day was consumed by tidying up the house and addressing work tasks. Yet as evening approached, an insatiable curiosity began to stir within me. I unlocked my phone, preparing for the onslaught of messages that awaited me. From my mother, Serena, you have crossed a line. Your sister is weeping, and your father is seething with anger. Access to the hotels you reserved is not possible. From Isabel, you're behaving immaturely. I fail to understand why you're amplifying this situation. Just resolve it already. And finally, from my dad, we need to have a conversation. This situation feels off. I placed the phone aside, a sense of disbelief washing over me. For years, I had taken on the role of the fixer, ensuring that everyone around me felt at ease and content. Having distanced myself, they found themselves at a loss for how to proceed. I filled my cup with tea and took a seat at the kitchen table, allowing the frustration to quietly brew within me. How could they possibly think I would take responsibility for their chaos? How could they possibly think I was at fault? A few moments passed before the next call arrived, and this time I picked up. "Serena," my mother commanded before I had the chance to speak. "This has lost its humor. We find ourselves isolated. This situation is incredibly mortifying, isn't it?" I savored the warmth of my tea, letting each drop linger on my tongue. "Awkward. Do you believe this is shameful? Imagine dedicating years to saving, meticulously planning every aspect, only to find out you're excluded from the journey you financed." "Cease your theatrics," she retorted. "Isabel required this far more than you. And now she will unravel it," I declared with conviction. "Your choice has been made, Mother. You chose her over me? All right, but don't anticipate me covering her getaway. We are bound by blood," she whispered fiercely. "We refrain from treating one another this way." I released a hollow chuckle. Curiously, that thought crossed my mind as well. Isabel's voice drifted in from the background, a persistent plea. "Mom, just end the call with her. She's being unyielding." That was the breaking point. "Have a wonderful journey," I remarked, my voice cold and detached. "Oh, hold on. It is not possible. Because this journey doesn't belong to you. It belonged to me. And now it belongs to no one. Farewell." I ended the call abruptly, silencing my phone once more. Throughout the evening, an unusual blend of frustration and liberation washed over me. Frustration at being placed in this predicament, yet a sense of liberation for having asserted my own boundaries. They could label me as over the top all they desired. For the first time in my life, I was reclaiming my power. The following days unfolded in a serene hush. With my phone turned off, I finally found the quiet I needed to think clearly, liberated from the relentless onslaught of guilt and blame. I spent my morning savoring coffee on my back porch, relishing the tranquility I had yearned for endlessly. My afternoons were consumed by tasks and the quiet completion of small projects I had long neglected. Moments that highlighted my strength when I was free from their constant expectations. Yet, as the third day unfolded, an insatiable curiosity began to consume me. I powered my phone back on only to be greeted by a flood of voicemails, more than a dozen, all waiting in silence. The initial messages came from my mother, her anxiety escalating with every subsequent text. "Serena, I require you to return my call immediately. This has escalated beyond control. I never thought you would go down this path. You've brought us shame. We are your guardians. How could you abandon us like this?" Then arrived Isabel's messages, brimming with the same self-assured tone she'd consistently employed. "This is remarkably trivial even for you. Your actions are causing everything to fall apart. Simply resolve it, Serena." And at last, my dad's voice, subdued yet still sharp. "Serena, I can't grasp the changes that have taken place within you. Please return our call so we can resolve this matter." I paused, a weight in my chest, before pressing play on the last voicemail, an extended message from my mother. Her voice was subdued this time, laced with a sense of weariness and irritation. "Serena," she started, "we find ourselves at the airport once more. The journey has been shattered, and I trust you take satisfaction in that. Your sister is heartbroken, and your father and I are. Well, the sense of letdown is profound and unsettling. Reach out when you feel prepared to share your thoughts." I removed the messages without responding. I found myself unprepared for conversation, and truthfully, I questioned whether I would ever reach that point. This was not an isolated incident. It was the result of countless years of prioritizing Isabel, while I was left to swallow my discontent with a facade of acceptance. As time slipped away, I couldn't help but ponder all the moments I had been ignored or undervalued, each celebration where Isabel's desires shaped the agenda, every family event where my achievements were merely an afterthought. This journey marked the culmination, yet the fissures had been developing over time. That evening, Celeste arrived unexpectedly, holding 2 cups of coffee and an undeniable expression of intrigue. "Text, I learned of the events," she remarked, placing the coffee on the table. "I received a call from your mom yesterday." Indeed she had. My mother had a remarkable talent for gathering supporters whenever she sought to manipulate my sense of obligation. "So?" I inquired, savoring a sip. Celeste shrugged, a subtle smirk playing at the corners of her lips. I mentioned that you might be occupied and would reach out to her when the time was right. I chuckled softly, a bemused smile crossing my face. Your excellence is unmatched. No, you are truly the best, she replied softly. Her tone shifted to one of gravity. Because you finally found your voice. I understand the difficulty of that, Serena. Resist their pull into the depths. Her words lingered in the air, haunting me long after her departure. Celeste was indeed correct. I had devoted too much time trying to accommodate those who appeared indifferent to my sacrifices. The moment had come to shatter that pattern definitively. As the weekend approached, an unusual clarity washed over me. The fury lingered, quietly boiling beneath the exterior. Yet, it was accompanied by an emotion I hadn't experienced in a long time. Liberation. Release from the weight of their constant demands. Liberation from the role of the family's problem solver. Emancipation to exist according to my own desires. Yet, as anticipated, the quiet was fleeting. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon when I finally received a call that I chose to respond to. This moment belonged to my father. Serena, he started, his voice laden with exhaustion. Your mother requested that I reach out. She believes you will pay attention to my words. Proceed, I urged, reclining in my seat. He exhaled softly. This situation has spiraled beyond control. Your mother is distressed, Isabel is seething, and frankly, it's all quite chaotic. Yet, you possess the strength to rise above. I tensed, his words sparking a new surge of fury. Superior to what, father? Defending my own worth? Determined not to allow you to trample on my boundaries once more. That's not what I intended, he replied hastily. It's simply that you've consistently been the one who approaches things with logic and calmness. The one who holds it all in place. This is not your usual self. I chuckled, a brief, harsh echo. You're correct, this isn't characteristic of me. Because I refuse to go out of my way to fix your chaos. He hesitated, and for an instant I believed he might at last understand my perspective. Yet he remarked, you're imposing consequences on the entire family for a single choice. Is that truly just? I echoed, my tone elevating. Do you really want to discuss fairness? Was it just when you and Mom chose that I didn't matter enough to be included in the trip I organized? Did you think it was just when you chose Isabel over me, as if I were insignificant? That's not what we intended, he murmured, his tone laden with weight. We were attempting to maintain a tone of caution now. We believed it was more essential for Isabel. Naturally you did, I retorted sharply. You constantly believe she requires additional focus, additional backing, additional of everything. And I refuse to be the one who always gives up for her, not anymore. The stillness on the other end of the line was overwhelming. At last, he uttered, I'm at a loss for words regarding what you expect from me. I don't require your words, I responded, my tone unwavering. I need you to realize that I can no longer be overlooked. From this moment forward, my needs take precedence. Quietly beautiful. Farewell, father. I concluded the conversation and placed the phone aside, my hands quivering. Throughout the day, I allowed myself to embrace every emotion. Quiet turmoil, deep sorrow, unexpected release. It was a challenging journey, yet it carried the essence of a fresh beginning. I had stepped away from the role of the family's problem solver, and I had no intention of returning to it. They had the ability to resolve their own complications. As my parents and Isabel finally arrived, I stood in anticipation at their home. I had settled into their driveway, cradling my coffee, an unexpected tranquility washing over me as I observed their taxi arrive. As they emerged, pulling their suitcases along, their expressions reflected a blend of fatigue and annoyance. Isabel broke the silence first. Well, I trust you find satisfaction, Serena. I arched an eyebrow, remaining still on the porch swing. Joyful about what? Our journey unraveled, my mother erupted, her hand gesturing dismissively as if to erase the entire experience. We endured a week filled with shabby accommodations and unappetizing meals, as our budget left little room for better options. And let's not even begin to discuss the tours, Isabel interjected, folding her arms tightly. It seems there were none at all. Can you imagine the embarrassment of arriving only to find out there was no booking made? I took another sip of coffee, allowing their grievances to drift past me like whispers in the wind. That seems difficult, I replied at last, my tone steady. Yet you had the desire to bring Isabel along, didn't you? I'm certain you all experienced some profound connections. That's not the crux of the matter, my mother retorted, her tone escalating. You were aware that our resources couldn't stretch to cover everything you envisioned. You orchestrated our downfall. I rose, placing my mug gently on the modest table beside me. No, I didn't arrange anything for you. I organized a journey for the three of us. A cherished treasure I had been holding onto for countless years. You were the ones who chose to exclude me at the final moment. My dad finally voiced his thoughts, his tone subdued yet still filled with blame. There was no need to call off everything, Serena. That was intense. Could it have been? I inquired, crossing my arms tightly. Why would I spend money on a journey I wasn't even included in? If Isabel desired it so intensely, you ought to have organized it on your own. You should consider yourself fortunate that I chose not to cancel the return flight. Isabel let out a quiet sigh of exasperation. Your flair for the theatrical is quite pronounced. It's merely currency, Serena. And you're so self-important, I retorted, my composure finally breaking. Can you even comprehend the level of effort and dedication that was poured into organizing that journey? Or do you simply believe that everything will effortlessly come to you because another person handles it? They remained motionless, caught in a profound stillness for an instant. For years I have taken on the role of the one who bears the weight. I continued, my voice unwavering yet resolute. The individual who mends, organizes, and ensures the seamless flow of everything, while you have taken it all for granted for just as long. That's unjust, my mother began, but I raised a hand to silence her. No, Mom, what's truly unjust is the way you have treated me. You always pick Isabel instead of me. I decided to no longer be your stepping stone. So, I wasn't meant to be part of the journey? All right, but you won't reap the rewards of my efforts without my involvement. I take my bag from the porch swing and prepare to depart. I'm relieved you're home, but don't anticipate a return to the past. I've reached my limit. As I made my way to my car, their voices trailed behind me, a haunting blend of resentment and remorse. Yet I chose not to glance behind. The journey back from my parents' place carried an unusual sense of tranquility. For years, each encounter had left me feeling utterly depleted. Yet, in this moment I sensed a newfound ease. I had finally released all the thoughts I had kept buried, and for the first time I felt no concern about how they would respond. Upon returning home, I brewed a cup of tea and settled onto the couch, my mind circling the encounter that had just unfolded. They had complete confidence that I would break, that I would surrender as I always had. Observing their bewildered expressions as I turned to leave served as a poignant reminder of the transformation I had undergone. They might feel a deep sense of neglect, a quiet pain, or a profound sense of shame. It was of no consequence now. I had reached the end of conforming to their demands. The following day, I received a call from Celeste. What happened? She inquired, skipping any formalities. I chuckled softly, reclining against the kitchen counter. Precisely as you would envision. They're seething, Isabel's sulking, and Mom is likely plotting her next move to reel me back in. Celeste emitted a quiet, dismissive sound. Allow her the chance. You've found your strength, and I'm here to ensure it remains steadfast. I smiled, appreciating her steadfast presence. Appreciate it, Celeste. I truly mean it. Your unwavering support has been my foundation throughout everything. At any moment, she murmured, her tone gentle. What lies ahead for you? Now that you're no longer the one trying to mend everything? The thought had lingered in my mind ever since that fateful encounter. What lay ahead? For years, I devoted countless hours to seeking my family's approval, striving to meet their expectations. Having released that weight, the horizon seemed vast and somewhat daunting. I'm uncertain at the moment, I confessed, yet I sensed that the choice is mine to make. Neither them nor anyone else. Only myself. It felt like the beginning of an extraordinary journey, Celeste remarked, and I could sense the joy radiating from her words. In the weeks that followed, I began to implement subtle shifts that carried significant weight in their own right. I transformed my living room, replacing the inherited furniture from my parents with items that truly reflected my personal style. I dedicated my weekends to wandering through local cafes and parks, activities I had long intended to pursue but never found the time for. I began to document my thoughts and aspirations freely, unfiltered by the opinions of others. Every tiny movement seemed to restore a fragment of my being that I had unknowingly let slip away. One evening, I settled in with my laptop and accessed the spreadsheet I had crafted for the journey. The void of cancelled plans loomed before me, yet I felt no twinge of remorse. Instead, I felt an overwhelming resolve. The funds were intended for an extraordinary moment, and I refused to let them slip away. Shutting the spreadsheet, I launched a new browser tab and entered solo travel concepts. Several weeks following my parents' arrival, I arranged a solitary journey to Italy. It had transformed into something entirely different from the journey I had envisioned, and the need to demonstrate anything had faded away. This was an opportunity for me to embrace my autonomy and prioritize my own needs at last. As I touched down in Rome, a wave of anticipation and unease washed over me. Having never ventured out on my own, the moment I exited the airport and entered the vibrant city, a sense of certainty washed over me. I had chosen wisely. I drifted through the cobblestone streets, captivated by the remnants of a bygone era, savoring the delights offered by quaint little cafes. There was an absence of constraints, no other voices to heed, just myself and the liberation to pursue my desires without hesitation. One afternoon, as I lingered on the Spanish steps with a gelato in hand, I retrieved the journal I had brought along. For years, I had penned my aspirations, yet those dreams were consistently intertwined with the desire to please another. At this moment, the emphasis transformed. Embrace the journey of acquiring a new language. Launch a modest enterprise. Journey to a minimum of 5 additional nations. The list expanded, each aspiration a mirror of the existence I yearned to forge, rather than the one I had been anticipated to follow. On my final evening in Florence, I dined at a quaint, family-owned eatery with a view of the Arno River. As I observed the fading light transform the horizon into a canvas of warm colors, a profound tranquility enveloped me. This journey transcended the ordinary, marking a pivotal moment in time. I had dedicated countless years seeking validation from my family, yet in this distant place a significant truth dawned on me. I found it unnecessary. I was sufficient precisely as I existed. Upon my return home, my parents attempted to connect once more, this time employing gentler tones and thoughtfully crafted messages. "Wishing you had a pleasant journey," a message from my mother conveyed. "Perhaps we can gather for a conversation in the near future?" I gazed at the message for a brief moment before placing my phone aside. It was perfectly fine that I wasn't prepared to respond. This time it would unfold according to my will. As I unpacked my suitcase and arranged my treasures on the shelves, a quiet satisfaction washed over me. 1 week post my journey, a call from my mother came through. This time I responded. "Hi Serena," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "What was your journey like?" "It was incredible," I responded, maintaining an even tone. "That's reassuring," she remarked, hesitating as if seeking the perfect expression. "We've been reflecting deeply on the events that transpired. Perhaps our approach was not the best." The revelation caught me off guard, but I wasn't prepared to release her from accountability just yet. "Inadequately? You took my place on a journey I organized and financed without so much as a word to me. That barely scratches the surface." "I understand," she whispered softly. "Your father and I were unaware of the depth of the pain it would cause you." "And Isabel," I inquired, "does she share the same feelings of regret, or is she still holding me responsible for the disruption of her getaway?" "She is distressed," my mother confessed. "Yet, I believe she is aware that there were more effective ways to navigate the situation." I exhaled softly, resting my weight against the counter. "Mom, this isn't solely about the trip. It's about years of prioritizing her needs and expecting me to bear the burden. I refuse to continue with this any longer." She paused, then replied with a quiet understanding. "We will strive for improvement. Your presence is invaluable to us." Her words resonated within me, yet I had gained the wisdom to prevent remorse from steering my decisions. "I'm pleased to hear that," I remarked. "Yet, mere words will not suffice to mend this situation. I require genuine action, not mere words of regret." She vowed it would be so. "We will respect your need for distance, yet I hold on to the hope that you will allow us to reconnect in the future." After the call, a wave of conflicting feelings washed over me. A mix of cautious hope and lingering doubt about the possibility of genuine transformation. As I settled into my evening ritual with my journal, a significant realization dawned on me. It was not my duty to determine if they transformed. In the months that followed, I maintained my boundaries resolutely. I answered their calls and texts when it suited me, but I made no effort to mend things or ease tensions. I turned my attention to crafting the existence I desired. I enrolled in a photography class, a pursuit I had long envisioned but never found the time or motivation to embark on. I became part of a local hiking group and have begun to map out my upcoming solo adventure. With every step, I sensed the gradual restoration of my essence. As I lingered on my porch, the fading light of the sunset whispered of journeys taken and distances traversed. I was never the one to sacrifice myself for those who failed to recognize my worth. I was an individual who held herself in high regard, established clear limits, and was unafraid to advocate for her worth. I experienced an unparalleled sense of liberation,